Buy now, pay later versus credit cards. The truth you need to know and understand to thrive financially. Good morning, everyone. It's Canna Campbell here, and welcome back to another episode of SugarMamma's Fireplay, the podcast where we spark financial independence. Together, we fuel your early retirement dreams, and I help give you the tools to build real, sustainable wealth and independence. Now, today we're talking about something I have been seeing everywhere on TikTok, Instagram, and even conversations with friends. And that is Gen Z saying no thanks to credit cards and yes, please to buy now, pay later. And honestly, I get it. I completely understand it, and I even occasionally use buy now, pay later because I don't own a credit card. See, credit cards have become, I guess, the bad, today's days, like bad boy. Interest rates can be up to like 20% per annum with a credit card, and then there's lots of traps with fine print and the history of pushing people into like a debt spiral that can sometimes take people years and years to escape. And Gen Z have eyes wide open, and they're smart. And, they've seen what's happened to their parents, their older friends, even influencers they might follow. And they don't want to borrow of it, which is smart. But here's the thing. Whilst buy now, pay later feels safer, there's no interest, you got a quick approval, the repayments are much smaller and spread across, 4, 6 or 8 repayments, it can still quietly create the same financial headache as a credit card can if you're not managing buy now, pay later correctly. And the thing with buy now, pay later is it is so easy to access. It can even be more tempting to actually overspend and harder to actually spot when it becomes a problem. And before you know it, you've got 5 different buy now, pay later payments going on, 3 are already defaulting, you're getting text messages saying this is overdue, and you're starting to not open up your inbox to see what emails are coming in. Now, this episode isn't actually about telling you not to use buy now, pay later, or never to even think about using a credit card and just to spend cash. That's not what I'm about. What I want to do from today's episode is give you the facts, explain the risks, but also share some really helpful smart habits that allow you to use any form of credit so that you stay in control at all times and not make whatever decision you make being about repayment schedules. Because for me, your financial goals, I think, are way too important to ever lose momentum because you have damaged your finances over a pair of shoes that you saw on sale or a last-minute concert ticket. So from today's episode, I guess I want to just explain why buy now, pay later looks so appealing, and obviously the traps that you may not be able to see right now, how to use it without buy now, pay later using you, and my 5 golden rules when it comes to using buy now, pay later, so you can actually enjoy it and the convenience of it without ever sacrificing your financial freedom. And as mentioned, I occasionally will use buy now, pay later. So let's get into it. So first of all, for those of you who didn't realize this about Gen Z, like why is this generation completely ignoring credit cards? Let's start with the elephant in the room. So Australians, particularly this generation, are actually avoiding credit cards completely. And I had a really interesting conversation with my au pair who's 20, and she's like, I never want a credit card. I think it's the worst thing ever. I've watched my friends get into so much debt. It physically frightens her. It gives her anxiety. And, for decades, credit cards, were the grown-up financial products of our time. They're there with the ultimate sign of independence and success. But now this generation, and even sometimes to myself, they've been recast as the villain. And at times within reason, good reason. The interest rates, as I said, hover around 20% or sometimes even higher. There are hidden fees like, annual fees and, repayment fees. And then there's like sneaky charges like surcharges. And then there's the trap of minimum repayments that I think are the worst things about credit card because they keep you in debt for years. And here's a reality check. A credit card with a balance at $5,000 at 20% interest is making only when you're only making the minimum repayments could take you decades to pay off that and actually cost you thousands of dollars in interest over the long run. Gen Z has grown up in the shadow of this 2008 GFC, the pandemic, rising cost of living, and now we've got obviously the housing affordability crisis. They've seen their parents, they've seen their older friends, they've seen people online weighed down by this type of debt. And they don't want to do that for themselves or to themselves. And they are thinking ahead of things like, the aspirations of buying a home and still building an investment portfolio. And they know that even a small amount of credit or access to credit through, say, a credit card can reduce their borrowing power. So what they've done is turned it to something that feels safer. Drumroll, buy now, pay later, but it's not really quite as it seems. So let's go through that together. Now, buy now, pay later has, marketed itself brilliantly. And this is why it looks and feels so enticing. First is there's no interest. Now, that alone sounds like a massive win. And then there are small repayments because you're breaking one large purchase into, say, 4 or 6 payments. It feels so much more manageable to our cash flow. It sometimes even feels like cheaper and even a little bit more responsible. And then if you ever applied for buy now, pay later, you'll know that it's pretty much an instant approval. There's no long forms. There's no scary credit checks. You're not having to submit, payments or pay slips or tax returns or anything like that. Is really fast, and it does kind of feel modern. There's no physical card. It's literally using passwords to log in, and it's built into the sort of online checkout or even in-store payment terminals where you literally don't even need to go and find your wallet or look up your bank details. You can literally pay for something with just a tap with your finger. So on the surface, it looks really smart. It's a great alternative, from a surface level point of view than a credit card. And for some people who use it properly, it can be a tool that helps, smooth out your cash flow. I remember when I first started learning about buy now, pay later, I was really against it, but I actually had some of my younger staff actually say no and explain to me how they were using it. And they were using it as a cash flow tool, a budgeting tool, and they shared a couple of stories with me. I was like, actually, that's pretty savvy. But the thing is, and here's the kicker, just because it's interest-free doesn't mean it's free of risk. What people don't always realize about buy now, pay later is there's no affordability checks done by these providers. Unlike credit cards, most buy now, pay laters don't have to check if you can actually afford the repayments, which I think is pretty messed up. That means it's so easy for a very innocent person to sign up for multiple buy now, pay later accounts without realizing actually how much they're going to have to commit to for each pay cycle. And this is where we see people with 5, 6, 7, or even 8, I saw recently, different buy now, pay later payments going. And they were all spinning out of control and not being repaid. The second thing about people don't realize about buy now, pay later is the late fees really do add up. It sounds like it's only going to be $10 or maybe $20, but some of these services actually have no cap on the late fees. So a $100 item could actually end up costing you $140 because of all these late fees. And if you've missed a payment, and those payments and fees then really start to stack up. So it actually could cost you so much more than what you've actually purchased. And then I hate to tell you this, but it can actually impact your credit score. So missed payments or where you've defaulted are reported to the credit bureaus. Now, this does then make it harder to be able to borrow money, for example, to buy a home or to take out a car loan or to borrow money to invest or, even to get a rental approval. So you need to know this is not as safe as it may sound. And also with buy now, pay later, which no one really talks about is, and if you use buy now, pay later, you'll get this completely, but it actually encourages impulse spending. when you see something you like and think, oh, that's so nice. Oh, it's like $600. I can't actually afford that. But, oh, look, they offer buy now, pay later. I'll just, pay it off over installments and I'll pay it off later mentality. This makes it far easier to actually justify that large, expensive purchase that you wouldn't normally make. You're thinking, oh, it's fine. I'll just, take it out slowly over time. And I'm not even going to notice those small amounts of money being taken out of my account over that 6-week period. It's fine. Don't worry. This is the problem. We're spending way more money than what we realize. And the same also with credit cards. The next thing is there's no visibility. If you are not tracking your buy now, pay later spending, it is so easy to forget that you've got, $40 here, $80 there, and $60 there, and all of a sudden you are juggling hundreds of dollars in multiple repayments coming out at multiple times of your pay cycle or of the month, which means trying to put that into your budget can be increasingly hard. And I will come to the rules that I follow when it comes to buy now, pay later. But this is where things get messy, and this is where you see people get into so much trouble with this. Now, I want to be also clear, this isn't about criticizing Gen Z. In fact, I actually think Gen Z has done something really powerful here because they've actually opened up a conversation about debt, and in a way that no other generation has. They're talking about credit card anxiety. They're questioning the system and they're looking for alternatives, and they're happy to share their alternatives with everyone else that might help them. And this is a positive thing because it's a huge step towards building greater financial literacy in this country. But every generation, millennials, Gen Z, boomers, they can still fall into debt traps when a financial product feels easy and accessible. But the difference now is that buy now, pay later is so frictionless, you could say, in that it can sneak up on you and so much faster than a credit card can. So how do you use buy now, pay later responsibly, or how do you decide if it's actually worth using at all? So this is what I recommend you do. Number one is you always track your repayments. So if you decide to use buy now, pay later, make sure those repayments are in your phone with a calendar note in an alert system to remind you that that's coming out of your account in a couple of days, and put them into your budget so that you are completely on top of those repayments and you never default. The second thing I recommend you do is have a buy now, pay later repayment account. So you could look at transferring the money for your repayments as soon as you make that purchase. And just so you know, you can actually pay it off earlier if you wish, which is something I highly recommend. The next thing I would recommend, so that you never, watch buy now, pay later spiral out of control, and that is to limit yourself to just one buy now, pay later provider. The problem when you've got, say, Klarna, you've got Afterpay, you've got even PayPal now offer this. When you've got multiple different providers, you have multiple headaches. You're juggling way more balls in the air. So just stick to one. And also it means when you're checking, for example, Afterpay, you can see, okay, well, I've got these repayments going. It's one quick, easy way to check rather than having to check, say, 5 different apps. Then for using buy now, pay later for planned purchases only. So don't ever use it for an impulse purchase. If you're thinking, okay, there's one particular item I would like to buy for myself and I'm going to reward myself with that because I've achieved this goal already. And I'm going to help pay for that item. I'm going to pay for it off over, the 6 installments or 8 installments, depending on who you're using. Just do it, plan it. Do your research, make sure you're buying, in a smart, savvy way. Don't do this impulse thing, I'll just put it on buy now, pay later. And then finally, if you're ever struggling with buy now, pay later, pick up the phone and ask for something called hardship support, which you can get where you can get a repayment plan put in place and help avoid all of those late fees and credit damage. It is so important that you talk to a human, explain your situation, and get this problem fixed for good. Now, as promised, I said I would share with you my 5 golden rules for buy now, pay later, because occasionally I do like to use this myself. What I would say is, number 1 is I would never buy something on buy now, pay later if I wasn't prepared to pay for it in cash. So I won't just buy it because it's an option to pay for it and buy now, pay later. I'll buy it because I love values and appreciate it. There's that huge mindfulness as to the value of the actual purchase. I would never also use buy now, pay later for essentials. I would never use it to pay for groceries. I'd never use it to pay for my utilities or rent or anything that was an essential. Then, of course, I would always cap buy now spending. Look, ideally, with my financial planning cap on, I'd say 0. You shouldn't be using it at all. But I understand that some people do use this in a smart way. So if you are finding that you are spending more than, say, 5 to 10% of your after-tax salary on buy now, pay later, that is a red flag to simply stop. It's that means you're actually not managing your budget correctly. You're using this as a Band-Aid, and the Band-Aid is about to come off and expose a deep, infected, nasty wound that needs urgent medical attention. Don't let it become like that. And then, of course, never stack your purchases. You would be a fool to have multiple buy now, pay later payments going. As I said, you're just juggling additional balls in the air. You're creating additional headaches for yourself. If you're someone who likes buy now, pay later, has emergency money, is good at managing their cash flow, but just likes it and doesn't have a credit card, only ever have one repayment going at one time. Don't have, 5 different Afterpay or 5 different Klarnas or 5 different PayPals or whoever, you want to use as your provider. Just have one going at a time, and do not purchase anything until that particular purchase that you've previously made has been paid off in full. And in fact, have some breathing time and learn to also enjoy using cash as well. And then finally, have an exit plan. Buy now, pay later is a short-term payment tool. It is most definitely not a long-term lifestyle. Use it to your financial advantage. And if it's not working, kick it. As I said, buy now, pay later can definitely be convenient for some, and it may even be helpful for some, but only when you are in complete control. But just like credit cards, it can also work against you if you're not intentional about how you use it. So Gen Z, if you're listening right now, please know I applaud you for questioning the credit card system and for looking for alternatives. But remember, it's not the product that decides your financial future, it's actually how you use it. So if you want financial freedom, focus on building habits that support it. The budgeting, the saving, the investing, and of course, staying on top of all of your debts, no matter what type of debt you have in your life. That is actually how you protect your financial future and make sure it is growing to something that is powerful and you're doing it in a productive way. And of course, you have your options and your eyes wide open. So whether it's credit cards or buy now, pay later or any other financial tool, the rule is always going to be the same. You stay in control, not the other way around. So if you found today's episodes helpful, please can you do me a huge favor and send it right now to any of your friends that use buy now, pay later, or even better, share it on your socials and tag me, because you never know who might need to hear this advice about buy now, pay later right now. And in fact, a lot of people are really hiding behind these dark secrets of multiple repayments, back-to-back repayments, and damaging their credit score. So just by sharing this and sending this, you're going to be helping a lot of people, whether you realize it or not. And of course, thank you so much for everyone for listening to today's episode. It's been a delight and a pleasure and an honor to tune in with you this morning. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll catch you this Friday at 5 a.m. for Start Here. And don't forget, you can always send through your questions to me to pick my brain and to help you get started. All right, everyone, have a fantastic week. Speak to you soon.